The first question that I've got this week: what is the best way to communicate effectively? Now, if you followed me for a while, I've addressed bits and pieces of this, but never really kind of set all of this out, at least in a video format, as to how I think about this. And the secret that I have found to effective church communications is not in saying more, but it's saying less with greater clarity. And this is really what I mean, is that when we tell our church's story, and it's clear, concise, and compelling, then people connect differently. And when they connect differently, they don't only engage with us, but they listen and they understand at a completely different level. So what we want to do is begin to think about our church story in some strategic ways, because we want to help people connect from a heart level and not just hear details. And so often that's where our church communications fail, is we're just talking shop as if everyone knows everything we know. And so they aren't always engaging and connecting with the heart and things like that. So really the best way is to think about it from a strategic standpoint as you're putting your communications together. And this doesn't happen just haphazardly. You've got to think through this. So I actually divide it up into what I call the 3 C's of communication. And the first one is that you want to convey the details. Now, that may seem totally logical, because of course we want to share details, but so often this is the only part we do in our church. And so we want to make sure we go a little further. So we want to start with the written list of the things that are most important for us to convey. What do we have to say in this communication? What is the event? How are we going to describe it? Who's the event for? Who are we trying to reach? Where is it going to be held? How do people participate? Where can they register for this event? Now, the interesting thing is that I find if I am not systematic about actually making a list of this, I tend to forget some of these details, and I, in my mind, go, oh, well, I know what it is, and so everyone must know what it is. But actually making a list of these things will help. And think about, is there a cost associated? What do we need to share about that? Where would people go for more information? If they've got a question, who are they going to contact? How are they going to get a hold of people? And then I start thinking about, what do we hope that people are going to be talking about when they walk away? If we could write the post-event buzz, what do we want them to be saying? And at this point, I'm not designing anything. I'm just writing all this out, getting all the details out. Here's what we're trying to do, so that I get an idea of the details and the goals. And then how are we going to follow up with this? What's our plan for the people we connect with at this event? If they make a decision for Christ, what's going to happen? What's that next step in the process? And I found, and I already alluded to this a little bit, that the temptation is to do this all in your head, because you know about the event, you're planning, it's really easy to just kind of plow through and go, oh, I got all these things, we're good. But what I found is, if I didn't write them down, I tended to miss something. And if I didn't write them down, it meant that I had to keep conveying the information over and over and over to staff, to volunteers, to people who were helping us with the registration process. And as soon as I would write it down, it helped me to clarify all those details. I had a concrete something to look at that I could post and review and never have a question in my mind. And it also gave me something that I could take that piece of paper into a meeting with volunteers, with the staff, and say, here's everything you need to know about this event. And oftentimes they go, whoa, I don't need all that info. Well, you may not at this moment, but if someone comes to you with a question on a Sunday, it would be nice to have a place to look, that you don't have to find the person who's in charge of the event. So if you can write out as many of these details as possible, it's going to help you tremendously. Also, it's going to help you clarify the way you speak and say some of this information, so that you can address questions that you might get. The other part about writing it out is, if you get a bunch of questions on Sunday and realize, hey, we did in fact forget something, you can just make a change to that document, send it back out to everyone, and you've got an updated piece of information. And it also helps you then with the next person who's got to share about it to make sure they cover maybe something that did in fact get missed. So I already mentioned you might want to post that where you can, share it with as many people. Remember, this is just the first step, and it's a logistical step, but it will set you up for success going forward. And the second C in the communications is that you want to connect the heart. And this is really where we begin to move from the logistics side of things into the more practical. And it's amazing. I look at a story from Jesus because he was a master at this. He was able to look at a person, assess where they were, and connect with them emotionally, because he knew that when you connect with someone emotionally, they listen differently. So he really provided for us with his parables a simple but powerful model that we can use in our communications. And when you talk about conveying the details, connecting the heart, okay, one of the ways he was great at doing it was that he used stories. And it's a great way for our church to do the same, is tell stories about the ministry, tell stories about people connected to the ministry, use illustrations, show life change examples from within your church. Do whatever you can to try and give life to the ministry as you talk about it, so that it's not just those details, but people see, oh, this goes deeper. I begin to understand why maybe this would be important to me, why it matters to my being a part of this. Maybe there's a reason because I heard someone's story and I go, oh, I have a similar issue, or I know someone who would benefit from being a part of that class. Maybe I should let them know, because you're connecting with their heart, and they're beginning to listen differently. And when you see your church grasp the gospel in fresh ways, they're going to respond differently. And it's amazing what happens then as you connect their heart and help them to grasp the gospel and how this ministry is going to affect their lives. All right. The third C is to creatively deliver. Now, this is the one where we have fun. Where we get to actually think about how are we sharing the message about this event so that it can be as effective as possible. And in Exodus 4, verse 2, God asks Moses, "What's in your hand?" Now, Moses replies, "Well, this is just a staff." And God begins to speak to him, and if you read the passage, he throws it on the ground, it becomes a snake. He puts his hand in his cloak and it comes out leprous. And this whole conversation really is about who is doing these works and what do you have in your hand that you can use. And objection after objection, Moses keeps raising, and God keeps saying, I've given you the tools you need to accomplish the task I've given you. So my question for you is, what's in your hand? As you think about convey the details, connect the heart, creatively deliver, what are some of those resources that God has put in your hands already that will allow you to connect with people and to creatively deliver information about the ministries that you're a part of? So what tools has sorry, Facebook dropped me there. So what tools has God already provided that you've maybe overlooked until now? Start thinking creatively about your church, and this may be someplace where you sit with some other volunteers or staff members and just talk through who might be able to help us in some of these areas. Think through things creatively, like, is there a technical institute student who maybe needs some web experience? Is there an English teacher who we could talk to about writing an articulate email for us? Is there a college student who lives and breathes social media? Is there a high school student who has a GoPro who would like to shoot a video that we could maybe use in a service promotion? Is there a graphic designer who has a heart for the church, who maybe could create a flyer that would help us promote this event, or even an invitation that we could hand out to people in our community. Just take a few minutes and make a list of those people that God has placed in your hands that might help you to communicate more effectively. Now, here's the trick. People want to know they're valued and that their input matters. So if you approach someone and just say, I need this, their responsiveness is not going to be very high, and volunteers don't respond well to that. But if you can spend time developing relationships with those people, beginning to let them know you value their input, you would love to have them be a part of the greater ministry, and cast a vision for them on, we're trying to communicate more effectively. We'd like to do it in some of these ways. I know you have gifts in these areas. Is there a way you could help us? Could you help me to do a piece of this? I'm not asking you to do the whole thing. Could you help me with a part of it? And you begin then to get people connected at a heart level who will serve. And the amazing thing is that when people are serving out of a heart's desire and they see what impact their service is having, they serve at a completely different level. You retain your volunteers differently. They're bought in, so they share about things differently. They talk to their friends. They talk to their relatives about what it is they've been a part of helping with, and they actually become your greatest spokespeople, and they begin promoting things for you because of their involvement. So remember, 3 C's: convey the details, connect the heart, creatively deliver. Those are the 3 ways that you can communicate more effectively with your church congregation. Have a church communication question you would like answered? Submit your question today at rad-ideas.com/askRadIdeas.